Okay, I'm sorry. Would you restate your question again?
So, in terms of your experience, 6 months experience at Willem de Kooning, how was it different, and what kind of experiences that you have, especially in terms of graphic design, that were kind of different to the approach at Falmouth?
Okay, yeah. So, right off the bat, when I arrived at Willem de Kooning, my first brief was very experimental. It was called material thinking, and it required us to pick a material of some kind, which is very broad. Some people chose metal, some people chose rubber. I chose mushroom. I guess because I wanted to experiment a bit with, I wanted to understand a bit better biology and working with organic materials. And you then had to start experimenting and produce some kind of graphic outcome from your material. So it was super experimental. There was lots of failing, lots of making mistakes, lots of trial and error. And that is maybe the main difference between Willem de Kooning and Falmouth. In Falmouth, there's a little bit more emphasis on producing good stuff all the way through. Maybe they don't explicitly say it, but the environment really kind of encourages you to not be too outside of the box, to not fail too much. Maybe because everyone kind of sees what you do. None of the process is hidden in Falmouth. Everyone works in the same studio space. Whereas in Willem de Kooning, you are often working alongside people you've never met before because of the way that they have the stations. So, if you're working in the publication station for a day, you're going to be alongside animation students and fine artists and photographers and people that you've never met before. They don't know who you are, they don't care about your project, and so they don't care if you do something embarrassing or something that fails. Whereas in Falmouth, your entire project is worked on within the graphic design studio. And therefore, everyone kind of sees everything. So maybe for that reason, it's a little bit more self-conscious. But, the positive of that is that it does feel like a family. After a while in Falmouth, you get to know everyone on the course, and everyone really does support each other. And it's a really wonderful environment because of that. It really does feel like family.
From like a faculty perspective, did you find a major difference in the way the professors were approaching design and what they were expecting out of you, or was the end expectation always the same?
I would say really it is quite similar in terms of what you end up producing. You usually end up producing something that falls within the kind of recognizable realm of graphic design. So it's often going to be some kind of exhibition or some kind of branding concept or some kind of publication. The professors or the tutors, the lecturers, don't necessarily push you, either in Willem de Kooning or in Falmouth, towards anything in particular. There is one major difference, that is, in Falmouth, on the graphic design course, you have a set of graphic design lecturers, and you have quite a wide set. There's maybe, I think, 12 for first year, which is a lot, compared to the 2 lecturers that we had on graphic design in Willem de Kooning. So if you didn't get on with those 2 lecturers in Willem de Kooning, then you just weren't going to get the support you needed. Falmouth has a lot more available for you in terms of kind of emotional support, maybe. And personal. In personal support. What, of course, they lack is the stations. They lack the amount of equipment, and they lack the amount of access that you would get. So your trade-off really is, okay, do I want a wider range of supportive staff that are going to really help me with my mental processes, my thinking, with my critiquing, or do I want to sacrifice that and instead get access to a huge amount of equipment and being able to experiment with a wider range of tools and materials, and a much more kind of hands-off approach. Like, we don't really want to be involved, you just go and do it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I think if you have the choice of doing a bit of both, like I have, then I would say do that. Do a bit of both.
What is your perspective on why is there a difference between like of a year? Like, do you think that plays a major role in the kind of education?
I mean, I'm desperate for a fourth year. I wish I had a fourth year, because
that's interesting.
Yeah, because it's like, when you're 90, when you're really old and wise and smart, you'll be like, oh, I wish I could be a teenager again with all this wisdom.
Yeah.
Because with all this wisdom, I would do things so differently. It's like the same in university. You get to where I'm at now and you think, oh, I was such an idiot in first year and in second year. I would have been much further ahead had I done things differently. And so I'm desperate for a fourth year, because I feel like maybe there's a part of me that isn't ready for like the real world. But at the same time, I'm fooling myself, because learning doesn't stop when you leave university. In fact, I would argue it speeds up. I think probably the moment I graduate and go and work for a studio, or set up my own studio, or just start engaging with people in the real world, I will probably learn more, and I'll probably learn it faster. It will just be less safe. University is like a little incubator.
It's a bubble.
Yeah,
definitely.
So it's a little bit slower, it's a little bit safer, it's a little bit more guided, and then when you get in the industry, it's like super rocky, and you learn a lot really fast.
Makes sense.
So do you want a third or fourth year? I guess it's like, are you someone that generally takes a slow pace? Or are you someone that generally likes to jump in the deep end and get things moving faster? If so, then maybe a 3-year course is plenty.
Yeah. So, but in terms of opportunities, after you graduate, what could you gauge from the environment in Rotterdam versus Falmouth? What would you think are the differences in those aspects?
I mean, as long as you're able to travel between the two, before the UK left the EU, it was like travelling between them was super easy. They're really close by. So it's almost borderless. It's like that there are so many people in the Netherlands that know people in the UK. It's super close knit. There's a lot of similarity. There's a lot of similarity in the actual studios that you find. I explored quite a lot of Dutch studios for one project that we did, and I've also just been interested in UK studios for a long time. And there's not really any difference. Like, anything that you can find in the UK, you can find an alternative of it in the Netherlands. It's very similar.
That's basically, that answered my question. Okay.